tonight's meeting to order. The Planning Board of October 27th, 2015. The first thing on our agenda tonight is the minutes from October 20th.
Mr. Chairman, there are no comments on the minutes. I recommend approval of the minutes of October 20th, 2015.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous approved. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is approval not required plans. We received a plan late today, and it's looking for our endorsement. Have the members had time to look at it, and they're looking for any comments? Yes, Paul?
I have a comment. If it came in today, the date is September 25th, but more importantly, there is no locus plan, so it's hard to tell where this site is. Frankly, I don't know where it is without the locus plan.
Yes, Ralph?
Is there someone here to represent this?
Doesn't look like it.
I'm curious where the new lot line is. I see the former property line.
They're taking that away. The two lots are being merged. 233 and 234 are becoming 234A.
Okay.
Right. Just for the board's edification, disregard all the solid lines you see there. They're not necessary. You'll see a dotted line. The dotted line is labeled former property line. So that the applicant seeks to merge two lots into one. You notice the former property line goes right through the garage, which is probably the impetus for the plan. But by definition, it's not a subdivision, so it's entitled to your endorsement, approval not required. Unfortunately, there's not a locus map on it, but you can see it somewhere on
Arnold Gifford Road.
correct. But because it's not a subdivision by definition, it is entitled to your endorsement, notwithstanding the lack of a locus plan.
Yes, Ralph?
I move we table this until our next meeting, until someone can represent the applicant and the plan.
I second.
Yes?
You have 21 days to make a decision on an approval not required plan. And I think if that means you would have to meet next week, it'd be the only thing on the agenda. Because then it's town meeting, and then your next meeting is the November 17th.
Excuse me.
Yes.
But if this came in today, how are we so far behind?
You have 21 days, so 21 days from today is what? Today is the 27th, 17th, you're right on the cusp. So that means you will record your decision with the clerk on the 18th. So I guess I could do this for the board members, if you would like, then the night before town meeting, I can post a meeting for you and ask the applicant to come in and explain the plan, go from there. How's that sound? Okay?
Yes, Ralph?
Our agenda says our next meeting is November 3rd.
I think that was automatic because of the computer, but right now, there's nothing on your agenda for the 3rd. I was trying to get you a night off because it's going to be, you've been 5 in a row, night off, you're probably going to have 5 in a row again, so I'll schedule it for the 9th. That gives you time. And then I can file a decision with the clerk on the 10th.
Well, there is a motion in the second. There's a motion on the floor
Yep.
in the second, so.
We're still discussing it. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. 4 opposed? It passes 4-3.
See you on the 9th.
I agree with Paul. Missing key component, technicality. Okay. Next item on the agenda is a planning board discussion, Article 3 for the November 2015 special town meeting. Recommendations. For Article 3, Brian, would you please review for us what our options are on our recommendations?
The board is probably familiar with three of the main motions that you typically make. You can make a positive motion as printed, which means no changes. You can make a positive motion, which is as recommended, which is typically the article with some changes. You can make a non-positive motion, meaning of indefinite postponement, which is just that we indefinitely postpone and don't expect to ever see it again. What the board may not be familiar with is other motions that are within your purview because of the time frame for which this special meeting was called. You have 21 days to report to town meeting from the close of the hearing. The expiration of the 21st day is November 10th at midnight. You could make no report, at which point then the town meeting could not vote the article. If they did, the Attorney General would disallow it. You can make a motion to refer to a future town meeting, which is a positive motion. That you did oftentimes in the 70s and through the 80s. We haven't done it recently, but it was a relatively common motion to make because the planning board at that time sometimes had dozens of articles, literally dozens of articles, and you would refer it to a future town meeting. Positive motion, you can amend it twice, you go from there. And in the past, when you've been under a tight time frame, this happened in the 90s, your motion was to simply adjourn. It's not debatable. You can't reconsider it. And at that town meeting, they simply did that. They adjourned. So those are the 6 options you have in front of you: as printed, as recommended, indefinitely postponed, refer to a future town meeting, make no report. I will say that if you make no report, a town meeting member can make a motion to adjourn the meeting to, say, November the 13th, at which time the town meeting could then take up the article, if you make no report. Or you could simply make a motion to adjourn. Those are the things you've done in the past. Most often, it's the top 3, but you actually have 6 options.
Ask you a question.
Yes, Doug?
Explain that adjourn. I didn't really understand that.
I think it was in the 90s, there was an article brought forward by the Board of Selectmen that would have amended the building permit limitation bylaw. It was one of those 30-day specials. And I believe that at that town meeting, and when they opened the town meeting, the article was announced, and I believe it was a town meeting member or a planning board member who simply made, Mr. Moderator, I move to adjourn. And town meeting said, okay, and they adjourned. Didn't take up the article because it was one of those, everyone felt rushed. It's only happened once or twice in my career, but it's an option you have. It's not debatable, and it's not, in other words, the moderator says, there's a motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, opposed. And it can't not be reconsidered. So it's a parliamentary move. So those are your options. I'm happy to repeat them.
Could you repeat them just in order quickly?
As printed, you make no changes. As recommended, you want to work on the article, make changes, and recommend it to town meeting. And definitely postpone it, meaning we don't expect to see it again. We refer to a future town meeting, which is a sort of a neutral, it has no connotation. We make no findings. We refer this to a future town meeting. You make no report. You remain silent. We have no report. We have 21 days to make a report. We're going to take all 21 days. Thank you. Or you move to adjourn the town meeting. Off you go.
Yes, Ralph?
I see no reason to delay a decision by this board on this issue. It's obvious that it's been going on for a long time. I think the citizenry of Falmouth has run its patience, that they want decisions from people who are elected, such as us and the Board of Selectmen. I think it's time for us to address this, particularly because it affects a zoning bylaw that we developed over a year and a half and that we voted to take to town meeting, and town meeting voted in favor of it. So I am in favor of us voting tonight as to whether or not we endorse this article.
Yes, Doug?
You know, on the section 240-166, any wind energy system owned by the town of Falmouth and used for municipal purposes in existence as of the date of this bylaw shall be exempt from the provisions of this article pursuant to section 240-30B, may be allowed to operate as a matter of right in public use districts. That's not too different from what we already have in there, except it says lawfully in place. It's not for us to determine if they're lawfully in place. I think we've already made a provision for existing wind turbines.
My understanding, we didn't, in the fact that it doesn't exclude any turbines. This is something totally different. This is actually taking the narrative of what we created and trying to put forth blanketly, anything before this doesn't matter. And the thing that I'm going to point out is this particular issue was the reason that in 2009 we started working on this bylaw, because we were kind of appalled at the system that went through and not knowing what happened. So to me, I do not like this fact that this is, somebody got, however it worked out, and the courts decided something, and they're trying to protect themselves from a bylaw that the town voted on to make sure turbines like this would never exist again in the town. The catch-22 here in this whole thing is something on the legal end is trying to be passed over by changing a bylaw. And I don't think that once a bylaw is approved and set and voted on by the town, that to get out of a legal situation, that anybody should be able to come in there and change one of our bylaws to get them out of a legal situation. So I don't believe that we have anything like this in there. This is strictly trying to bypass the existing bylaw that is in place right now.
Ralph?
I totally agree with Ken. You have to look at the wording of the two paragraphs that refer to this. The bylaw that we passed, that we presented to town meeting and was passed, says any wind energy system lawfully in existence as of the effective date of this article shall be considered conforming. Now, the current wind turbines that we're discussing, Wind 1 and Wind 2, the lawful existence of them has not been established. It has not been established. Now you take a look at the wording of the Article 3, and it says, any wind energy system owned by the town of Falmouth and used for municipal purposes in existence as of the date of the bylaw. It doesn't say legally in existence. So obviously, this is an end run on the attempt of the Board of Selectmen, who, by the way, never consulted us about this article before they presented it, never talked to us about our own bylaw, never came to us and said anything. Do you think we should go ahead with this? Does it make sense? What do you think the public's gonna think? Never did that. All they did was throw it out there for us at a public hearing. So to me, you couldn't possibly, I couldn't possibly endorse this article the way it is written. And it's terribly important, if you read the local newspaper, to make sure that the citizenry of this town, the public, knows who is bringing this article forward. It is being on the request of the Board of Selectmen, not this board. Everybody needs to understand that. We are simply endorsing it or not endorsing it. That is our position.
I think it's a recommendation is the technical.
Well, a recommendation is an endorsement, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Pat?
Thank you, Ralph, for pointing that out. I've got several issues with this. When I read the public use bylaw, it says under 240-30B, all municipal purposes, and then it qualifies it, including the administration of government, parks, playgrounds, recreation buildings, town forests, watershed, water towers and reservoirs, beaches, fire, and police stations and armories. Okay, so that's municipal purposes under public use. It also specifically states windmills under 240-33G5. And after the word windmills, it says, see Article 34. You go to Article 34, and right there at the very first, it says, special permit required, and asks for the criteria. I don't see how that could have been avoided in putting these turbines up. I know there's dispute on it, but I don't see how it could have been. So that's one of my problems with this. Another problem is, just as Ralph said, it's been tossed to us without a discussion to an amendment to a bylaw. We have no idea what the future repercussions of this might be on other bylaws in here by passing such a thing, and without due diligence of looking into how it affects other bylaws. I don't know that it will, but we've had no time to do that. The other thing is, and as Ralph kind of pointed out too, and I'm going to put it a little bit more bluntly, it's the smell test. Trying to get around a legal issue. And I've got a problem with that too, appearances. An elderly friend once said to me, don't bend over to tie your shoes in a watermelon patch. So that's the kind of test I'm putting on this too. If it looks like it's trying to get around something, I can't support it.
Ralph, I agree with you. But I also thought maybe I guess you don't think having more time and referring this to a future meeting and hearing it more would be useful? You're ready to decide on it now. I thought they were rushing it, putting it to us at the very last day.
I came very close to opening this discussion with a motion that we vote IP. That's where I am. Okay, I've heard enough.
Okay.
That I have notes from the hearing. I've talked to people, a lot of people about it. It's more the philosophy behind this than the content. And it's wrong. And I don't want to be a part of it. I'm not going to vote to endorse this. Any way, shape, or form.
I don't disagree, and Brian, I just want,
Why don't we just see what everybody else has to say before you start asking?
I want to ask a question though, okay?
But some other people want to comment. I want to hear what other people have to say.
Who else
too.
says something?
I was just going to, I agree with Ralph. And when I looked at this and I looked at our bylaw, to me it was very simple. If there wouldn't be a need for this article if D applied. So because they didn't feel that D applied, they wouldn't have need to write this article. So that's as far as I had to go with it.
Ken, you have anything else?
Not at this point, no.
I got one comment.
Yes, Paul?
At the public hearing we had, I listened carefully, and the town council went through the entire process of the legal determination where the town has got agreement on everything up to the last moment, and that was turned down by the appeals court, and there will be no appeal for that. Then we heard the town manager talk about the financial aspects of it, which are considerable and were very interesting. And then we heard a very lengthy presentation by the assistant town manager on the due diligence done all the way through this whole process. And there were comments from the public, mostly against this bylaw. But the issue before this board is none of that. It has to do with a change to the bylaw, not all these other things we've been talking about at the last meeting. I'm uncomfortable with it. I think we passed a bylaw that tried to address all the issues. We reduced everything from the sound measurements to locations. We spent an awful lot of time, well more than a year, trying to work on that. And to now come in and make a minor change to that, it makes me very uncomfortable.
And Pat raised very good points where you make a quick change to a bylaw, you don't know where else it's going to affect. That's why we take so long to write a bylaw. I mean, we're working on one at this time, and we're looking at probably another 6 months still to work on that. And while we were in that discussion, Ralph raised some issues about, oh, how is this going to affect this? And those are the types of things that come up. And to just do this on the spur of the moment, to me, defies logic.
Ken?
I agree with what Ralph said about the IP, but I also want to consider some of the other options. The IP actually says indefinite postponement. That means we do not like it, and it can still go on the floor for a vote. I'm actually wondering about the no report, which means we don't give this enough merit to think we should have to make a decision, and they can't vote on it on the floor. Because it is so wrong that they're trying to take the bylaw, and the attorney told us we're trying to get around a legal issue that we're in, so we want to change this bylaw that you spent all this time doing. That's exactly what came out of Attorney Duffy's mouth. But it won't fix the other 6 or 8 issues, but it will help fix the one that we're about to get into. So,
I'm actually in agreement, Ken. The only thing is I also wanted to consider the option of extending it to a future town meeting. Because this is something that was thrown at us at the very last minute, which I believe is inappropriate. We schedule all kinds of meetings, we tried to schedule all kinds of joint meetings with the selectmen, and I was called up the very last day with a few hours' notice to sign something and put this out at the very last minute. And I thought if it's that important for a town, maybe we should take more time. And it has the same effect as, actually, I believe what Brian said, it actually means we deal with it again and it doesn't go to town meeting.
the thing about that is you're saying that it needs to come up again. I think it shouldn't come up at all, and that's why, we shouldn't even talk about this again. It's a waste of this board's time for us to sit here and say, now we want to chop up the bylaw. If I'm not mistaken, I believe in the fall of 2012, there was a motion on the floor to try to exclude these in one of the bylaw presentations. Was that not true? There was something at one point, and I understand that there might have been a town meeting didn't want it then. So,
Ralph?
The ball is not in our court. The ball is in the court of the Board of Selectmen. If they don't get approval of this at town meeting, then they've got to do something else. Not us. Not us. It's their issue.
Pat?
I'd like to point out something else that has very much troubled me, that this is like a slippery slope. With Attorney Duffy's memo on page 2, right at the very end, it says a municipality may exempt itself from its own zoning bylaws. A municipality may also treat itself deferentially in its zoning bylaws. Well, that's one thing, when the zoning bylaw is being created and you want to exempt the municipality from certain things. But to me, this smacks of really special treatment that a government should not get to exempt itself from its own laws. That is a very slippery slope. I remember my response when the legislators in Washington were kiting checks with the Congressional Bank. We'd have ended up in jail. They didn't have anything done to them. So this is sort of like that. It's special treatment of the people who govern this town because the government is the people who are governing the town. I don't like that at all.
Doug?
I personally feel like I don't agree that the town should be exempt from any of its own bylaws, because if it had to work within its own bylaws, then the bylaws would be adjusted as required evenly for everyone. So, I think it's a shame. I think in my heart I believe that the right thing for us to do is the IP, but I don't know if that's the most effective vote for us. I think the future town meeting might be more appropriate, because it is an important big issue, and it is a rush. It's a last-minute thing.
Yes, Ralph?
I move the planning board vote indefinite postponement on Article 3 of the special town meeting, the date of which is
November 10th.
November 10th, is it? November 10th.
I'll second.
I have a question.
Any further discussion?
Yes, yes. I have a question. On an IP, is that it? Is there any wordage that is ever put in with that, or is it just an indefinite postponement? Do we put?
Put the reason for it.
Okay. So we will draft something, so if we voted on that, it would be stated.
But at town meeting, it can be turned into a positive, and the town meeting can vote on it, and it can pass.
But does it still get read at town meeting? Our reason I can't remember.
I don't,
It's in the article, excuse me, Jim. In the article under recommendation, it says the planning board will make its recommendation on town meeting floor.
Okay.
So that will be up to our chairman.
any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. Call for a vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous?
I think so.
Yep, thank you very much. That was interesting. Okay, the next item on our agenda is a planning board discussion on the accessory apartment bylaw.
So the board members should have a copy of the draft dated October the 19th. It's the strikeout version you got in your agenda package. Also in your package tonight, in your brown folder, you'll have another handout. I think we emailed this to you, that has the amnesty provisions. It should be in your brown folder. It wasn't emailed out to you, but it is in your brown folder. Pat? There it is. Okay. So you will recall the last time we discussed this, one of the questions was, should it be a use allowed as a matter of right or by special permit? And the board members thought it would be a special permit. So if you look in the first paragraph, you'll see the underline now that says by special permit from the Board of Appeals. You got that? All the other underlines are the information that you wanted to put in from the Barnstable version with regards to an affidavit from the property owner. I changed owner's unit and second unit to principal and accessory, just so it tracks our bylaw more accurately. The 50% is the thing we discussed out of the Barnstable bylaw too. And the others are changes we have done previously. Also, I've inserted the amnesty provisions. Now, you'll remember, I think it was in April of 14, this amnesty is actually in effect today. It was voted back in April of 2014. So far, the only individual who's used it is the petitioner, but it's still on the books. And it would expire in 2017. So what I've done here is in the first paragraph, you'll see I deleted within 3 years from the effective date of the bylaw, so it would just make it an amnesty, that's ongoing. I changed January 1st of 94 to 2004, so it's essentially 10 years ago. I've deleted the special permit condition with regards to a deed restriction. This is in keeping with your thoughts with regards to the accessory apartment bylaw. We took out the deed restrictions with regards to income limitations. Remember, just because we have a deed restriction, doesn't make it eligible for the subsidized housing inventory. It has to go through a lottery process and a fair and equal lottery marketing process and other issues. It just puts a deed restriction on it. And then in paragraph C, to be consistent with the first paragraph, I changed it from 20 to 10 years. So you have an accessory apartment bylaw, special permit board of appeals, and an amnesty provision that's essentially ongoing. If you can show you've had an accessory apartment for the last 10 years or so, you're eligible to apply. And at least bring it up to certain building code standards. And this would be something that's simply in place. It would expire 10 years from now unless you came back and adjusted those paragraphs 1 and 2. We can talk about whether or not you simply want to make it a rolling bylaw that, if you can demonstrate 10 years worth of existence, so you don't, it's just every year it continues. For simplicity's sake, I just made 1994, 2004. And those are the changes I put together for you, for your discussion tonight on this accessory apartment bylaw. It's getting there.
Yes, Pat?
I enjoyed the Harwich bylaw that you forwarded to us. That, along with some of the other parts of the earlier ones that you gave us, brought up some questions in my mind that perhaps should be tackled under this too.
Okay.
We have not set a minimal lot size, and I'm
Right.
thinking it should be considered as maybe 10,000, 15,000 square foot lot size. Because I know there is concern about very, very small lots and how you could potentially overuse.
If it was a by right use, that'd be more of a concern, Pat. But because we've inserted it to be a special permit from the Board of Appeals, they have to look under Section 216 at the suitability of the site and the adequacy of the site. It might be that you have a very small lot, but it might fit the situation. So yes, there's no delimiter. We leave that up to the Board of Appeals.
Okay. Should we state anywhere that the normal setbacks that we have as a town should also apply?
They must.
Yeah, but should we, my point is, should we state these things so it is in one place, so that people don't have to go searching from here to there?
My recommendation is no. If you have a principal structure or an accessory structure, regardless of whether or not you have an accessory apartment within it, has to maintain those setbacks. Someone might just ask the question, well, why are they repeating themselves here? So I wouldn't go there.
I'm just bringing these things up from reviewing.
And I'm just offering.
Yeah, and the other two things that I think we should have in a bylaw is when ownership transfers, what happens? And termination for noncompliance, what happens then?
Right now, there's no ownership delimiter. The special permit runs with the land. So
Okay,
if you put an ownership delimiter in there, it would be very hard then to finance these things, because it could go away. Or if I'm a renter and my landlord decides to sell, then my apartment goes away. So I don't think I put an ownership limit on it. The other issue with regards to compliance, it'd be no different than any other zoning infraction, and that's spelled out under the penalty section of the bylaw, which is, penny a day, doubled every day for 30 days, or whatever it is.
That's true, but this is more specific.
Okay.
It says that in 2 instances, it says that if it's not being used appropriately, that within a certain period of time, all of the amenities within it that makes an apartment must be removed.
I saw that. I'm not sure how you enforce that.
I'm not either.
So I'm going to talk to the Brewster town planner, who used to be the Harwich town planner, to get a little info on that before we order people dismantling things.
Yes, Doug?
I had an experience with an apartment in Barnstable that was determined to be created a second apartment in a house. And the zoning enforcement officer showed up with a policeman and asked the owner for permission to look at the house and inspect it. And the owner said, sure. And so they went in and said, I'm sorry, but you can't have a two-family in Katuitt. There's no place where that fits. And you're going to have to either restore it to a single family, which means take out the kitchen and provide a secondary access.
Right.
So they did have the right to go in. They couldn't, I don't know what would have happened if he said no.
And I think that's an apartment that fits into this amnesty thing. You put something in the basement, there's no second means of egress, the windows are too small. It's a real public safety issue, someone could die in there. I think what Pat is getting at is you actually have a special permit. You built your accessory apartment. Over time, there's some sort of non-compliance issue or ownership issue. You can be ordered to dismantle the accessory apartment.
Right.
And, which is legally commenced, legally existing, and all that. I want to get a little bit more information on how that works, and why they had that in there, Pat, before.
I see, because it was legally commenced, how
Right.
do you undo it?
Now, why are we undoing it? Right. I can see if you were never, if you took a basement and you just threw a, separate entrance in there, well, it's a building code issues, but this is actually, you got your permit, you're off you go, and then all of a sudden, there's some bumpity bumps, and you could be ordered to take the kitchen out and dismantle things. I want to know how that works. All right.
Ken?
The thing about that is, I can see a perfect example is if somebody decided to rent both dwellings, then they violated what it is called an accessory apartment. So they've rented the main house and the accessory apartment. They're in violation of what an accessory apartment is, and that's a good point.
I think they have it in there as a remedy. I'm not sure they've ever used it, but it's a big stick.
It is.
But I will talk to Sue about that.
And that would make somebody think twice about violating.
Right.
Because if they're going to have to go dismantle it and make it back into a single family, or if they had put an addition on, and now
Right.
they've got to make it a single family, they
Okay.
think twice about it.
Yes, Ralph?
First, Brian, thank you for looking into several other towns and the relative effectiveness of their bylaw, their accessory bylaws, because that's what we asked you for. And
Okay.
it appears that Harwich, out of the 3 that you mentioned, was the one that was reasonably successful,
Right.
and another one was moderately successful, and the other one wasn't successful at all.
Miserable.
So it
They'll
seems,
they'll remain anonymous.
yeah, I didn't mention their names. But it seems to me as though Harwich has done a lot of homework for us here. And it would behoove us to pay serious attention to their bylaw in incorporating, in developing our own bylaw, which Pat was talking about. So I think that we're taking the right approach to this. talking about towns that are very similar to us in size and demographics, and they're on the Cape. I think we're going in the right direction here.
Yes, Bob?
I just, I realize I think it is going to have to be a special permit. I was really kind of hoping for something by right. But is it possible for the building commissioner to issue a special permit? Or does this have to be a zoning board? Or
No, we had talked about perhaps talking to the Board of Appeals, and for certain size apartments or in certain districts, it might be delegated to the zoning administrator. That's undetermined at this point, but the building commissioner cannot issue a special permit. Right. One town does have sort of a platformed approach, or, one town says from between, I think, 6 and 8, it's by right. I could be wrong, the numbers are irrelevant, but a certain threshold is by right, and then anything over that is a special permit. So it might be, if you've got a 20,000 square foot lot, you're looking for a 500 square foot accessory apartment, it might be more by right. If you got a 8,000 square foot lot, maybe then it's a special permit. But right now, for simplicity's sake, we just make it a blanket special permit. It might be that the more ministerial applications can be delegated to the zoning administrator, which would be something we can work with the zoning board of appeals on, because I know they want to have a meeting, a joint meeting eventually, and this is a topic of discussion.
Okay.
Yes, Pat?
The other thing that I think would be helpful to add at some point before we go out for any kind of review is I really liked reading again the Harwich, I guess you would call it purpose, but it's not headed as purpose, because these are exactly what we have been talking about, all of these points. We don't want this to be construed as affordable housing, using that metric. We want it to reflect a diversity of housing that we're going to increase. And they said focusing in particular on the youth. And I think that is something that would help focus in this too, as to what we're trying to accomplish.
I agree, and that's why I thought that having the owner-occupant was important. That we don't want to, as Ken had brought up in the past, we don't want to create a status where we have two-family dwellings. These are really to be one of the units should be owner-occupied, and that, I think that's from my thought process, is we're trying to open up housing for everyone and have it be for the people of Falmouth that own their homes, and they can, at least they live in one half of the building, and that's what this is about, not creating another whole level of duplexes.
And one of the concepts behind that was for people who wanted to age
In place, yeah, that was
But
really
they
where it's
didn't want
coming
to
from.
be in the main house, they could move into the accessory.
They could move back and forth as the generations needed it. It would enable people to stay within the same building for multiple generations. That's really where it came from, and I think Ken addressed your concern before, that you had brought up before, and that's wanted to.
I think this looks good. I think we're on the right road.
So we're going to come back with some more.
Well, I would ask, at what point do you think this should be disseminated? Say, okay, the zoning board of appeals is going to be the special permitting authority. At what point should we get their input? Should we go out to different housing groups and get their input on it? I'm throwing this out, I don't know. I think the ZBA should definitely get some input on it, since they're going to be the special permitting authority.
They do have a copy,
Oh, they have, okay.
Oh, yeah.
and we have received individual comments from individual members of the Board of Appeals. But
As well as
eventually,
from their administrator.
correct, so to be incorporated, but I do have some comments, but
Good.
not from the board.
And I think it should be a topic for a joint meeting with the selectmen as well,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
before we take it. This process is we bang it around here, we take the selectmen, we bang it around with them again, and everyone gets comments. We collect it from all the other boards, then we put a draft together, then we have a hearing, the public comes back in again, one more time for hearing, and then we take it to town meeting. So to be clear, we're in the early stages of this, the process. I get that process right, Brian?
Very good, you are coachable.
So that's, so we're, I guess we're gonna, Brian, we've asked for some more information.
Yeah, you want me to look at incorporating more of the Harwich purpose into the bylaw? You want a little bit more information on how they, for dismantling as a penalty, is what I have here. Otherwise, I didn't get any comments back on the amnesty, so we're getting kind of close to putting it out there. I'll make these changes, I'll put this version 1019 up on the webpage. I do echo Pat's comment about, this is about housing choice and housing diversity. It's not about, the SHI. I think it's important to get that out there. Right.
One more question. So we say the total number of bedrooms on a lot, or principal and accessory units shall not exceed 4 when the lot contains 20,000 square feet or less. What if you're looking for a 5th bedroom? What would the lot size be? Is there more thinking to do there?
It would have to be an excess of 20,000 square feet, right? Isn't that right?
Correct. So,
But how
So-
much excess? Just 21,000 or?
Yeah. I
just
guess, yeah,
anything above?
anything above 20,000 square feet at this point.
And
What
then
about
the-
if it's on the sewer?
I think the reason that is in there, is that you want to have at least a floor that essentially equates to your minimum size, which is a 20,000 square foot lot in a GR district is 20,000 square feet. You'd have a single family equivalent, 4 bedrooms. When you're on the sewer, that's the next paragraph. It's when you implicate any water resource district or any coastal pond district. Then you say 1 bedroom per 10,000 square feet.
A question, if my recollection is correct, on the GR district, could be actually taking away what we have. Because I think that you can fit 6 bedrooms in a GR district, if one of them, we have this bylaw, if one of them's affordable. And I believe that you can get the septic system to fit for the 6 bedrooms and for the reserve on a 12,000 square foot lot.
Right, I think the reason we have
I
it
think
now,
I've done it.
right now, you can't have an accessory apartment in
No, it wouldn't be an
in a
accessory.
GR district. You can't have a 3-family. You can have a 2-family.
2-family, or one of them, if it's affordable under the,
Right.
that
deed-
bylaw
a deed-
still's out there.
Deed restricted a 3rd unit.
Yeah.
But in a GR district, you're not allowed to have an accessory apartment in your single-family dwelling.
So
That's
this
why-
lifts the
This
deed
lifts-
restriction away.
That lifts that restriction
Okay,
away.
now I understand.
Right.
Thank you for clearing that up.
So I will draft up a October 28th version, thereabouts. Put this version up on the webpage, and I think you're probably ready, I'll send it out again to the folks, but then you're probably ready to, remember the warrant closes early January. I think you're ready to get this out there. Okay?
So our target would be for,
After town meeting.
no, but for the spring town meeting, it sounds like that's gonna be our goal.
That's been the goal, that's
Right.
my understanding. You want this for the January warrant closing.
Just making it clear that that's
Right.
what we're
The other option is there's usually a special, and that warrant closes in February, but, we try not to bring things to a special town meeting. You see the results. You bring it to the annual. Right. All right, so I'll get this ready for you.
Everybody comfortable?
Yeah.
Off we'll go. I'll
Okay.
congratulate the Harwich Town Planner again. She's a good gal.
Oh, I've got one more question. Were we looking at this as accessory apartments being all over town permissible as they are currently? Or were we looking at restricting it to a certain area, like an overlay initially for
Right.
5 years or so?
Right now, they're allowed in every residential district and every agricultural district, which is about 2/3 of the town. And we talked about that as your target area, including also your general residence district. Right. Because there are any number of legal and not so legal apartments out there in these districts. Right. And you want them to come in to be eligible under the amnesty. So if you had only focused it in a very specifically targeted area, the amnesty makes no sense.
We brought that up, that's why I just wanted to make it clear.
Yeah.
That's another
Right.
clarifying sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, next item on the agenda is a discussion of the multifamily dwelling district.
So the board members have a draft October 15th. We're busy on October 15th. And what I simply did was I took the business redevelopment district and the general residence district and sort of combined them up into what you see in front of you here. And it is the basic outline of any district. It always starts with a purpose. Everything flows out of the purpose section. So that's why I would direct your attention there first. Why are we doing this? What do we want to see happen? That's probably the most important paragraph in any bylaw. Establishments is your next paragraph. Where do you want to put it? And then use and dimensional, how are we going to do it? So we'll start with, why are we doing this?
I believe it's an action item in our local comprehensive plan.
It's a hobby, I don't know.
That has been approved by town meeting.
Yes.
So I think we should start
Right.
off, that's one of the reasons why.
Okay. Sure, okay, town meeting voted.
Well, I think the local comprehensive plan discussions, where we keep talking about increasing density, and we keep talking about reestablishing the villages.
Right.
And, we use East Falmouth, Davisville as an example, how the village concept has just kind of gone away from that area completely. And if we had a multifamily dwelling district around there to kind of strengthen that, other development or redevelopment in that area might happen to strengthen the village.
Okay, I can add that for you.
Yes, Pat?
I haven't re-looked at Judy Barrett's report, and I know she had a lot of information in there. I don't know whether she had anything in about multifamily dwelling districts. Do any of you recall that? Because I'd like
Yeah.
to bounce this off of what her recommendations might have been.
I don't remember anything specifically about multifamily, but she did specifically say we need to ease restrictions on options, which is the impetus for this.
I particularly remember this coming up in the local comprehensive plan.
I know, but I don't remember whether it was part of her report to the town or whether it was just our discussion.
I'll look at it for you.
Should we read this to the public?
Would you like to?
Yes. So draft, October 15, 2015 draft, multifamily dwelling district. Purpose, to provide housing choice opportunities at enhanced density in areas with sufficient capacity for traffic and wastewater, outside of environmentally sensitive areas, near shopping, schools, public transit, recreation, and have pedestrian amenities. That's the purpose. Establishment. For the purpose of this article, there is hereby established in the town of Falmouth a multifamily dwelling district, which is an overlay district superimposed on the zoning district. This district is depicted on a map entitled Multifamily Dwelling District, dated whatever, and scale on file with the town. The use regulations, permitted residential uses, 1 and 2 family dwellings, multifamily dwellings up to 4 units per acre, special permit uses, multifamily dwellings up to 8 units per acre, accessory units customarily incidental thereto. Dimensional requirements, minimal lot size 20,000 square feet, lot coverage is 20 to 50, what does that mean?
20% by structures and 50% by structures, paving, and parking.
Thank you. Lot width, 125 feet, frontage 100 feet, building height 35 feet, and setbacks 20 FY/10 SY.
Sign in your
RY.
yard.
Front yard, side yard,
Right.
rear yard.
You get those planning acronyms down, Doug.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, geez, that was easier than Roman numerals.
Hey, I'm glad I didn't read it, because I was like, what the hell?
Never volunteer.
I'd like to get the board's sense of where this type of overlay might occur. To me, I would think maybe in the business zone, B2, or where we want to see the redevelopment happen, and where housing may not be allowed over a business or something like that. I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, this is actually where I wanted to get the land use maps, zoning maps for the board members, and get you the pens. You were going to have a mapping exercise. I'd like to have that at another meeting with you, because I think there are some areas that make some sense. I think Davisville makes a lot of sense. I looked at that. Some areas in T-Ticket, some areas around the mall, some areas around the plaza. But, you know, some areas on East Main Street. So I'd like to bring that to you for your discussion, probably right after town meeting.
Okay.
Right. The second question, too, for the board members is that right now you're thinking overlay. So that means you would overlay this over, say, a business district. That still runs into the problem of I could put a multifamily dwelling here, and then right next to it I could have Burger Diddle. So you have to really think about that, because the underlying zoning could still allow for those types of uses. So think about whether or not you really want to make this a district or an overlay. Because there might be some areas that it makes a lot of sense, and then you won't have to worry about those incompatibilities, you know, deliveries at 2 o'clock in the morning, you know, the beep, beep, beep of the disposal units and whatnot, have always been an issue next to some of these business zones. But we have some, I've asked Bob Shea to think about these areas and put some maps together, and we'll have them for you. It's easier to visualize.
Okay.
But at the top of your heads, if you can think of some areas and let us know, you know, I certainly want to hear that today, right now. Yeah.
Yes, Pat?
Could this, in some manner, be used to encourage redevelopment? Because there are a number of areas in town that are ripe for redevelopment, I think. Is there some way to do that?
All developers like certainty. They want to be able to check the boxes, you know, do the math, and know that they could go downstairs and be relatively certain it's going to take so much time to get through the permit process. So anything you can do in that regard to lessen uncertainty and risk usually then is a key element to redevelop whatever it might be, commercial, residential, both. That's the key. So there might be some areas that are aching for redevelopment, but you just don't have the risk factors checked off for anyone to come in and say, well, you know, I could wind up in the land court, or I could have a Burger Diddle right next to me, and there goes my residential investment, my rents and stuff like that. So you have to be able to eliminate those things no matter what you want to do, risk and uncertainty. And then off you go. This is why Judy's report said you got to you have to relax some of the assumptions made in the model that we're certainly working under, and see what happens.
Would it be appropriate to have a parking discussion as a component of this?
Step 19,
Okay,
yeah, but eventually, sure. It might be that you may want to have more shared parking or complementary parking, if you have a mixed use or whatever. Right.
because I noticed the lot coverage is this kind of a, we're picking up 10%. It's usually 20, 40. That's kind of dealing with it a little bit
Right,
there.
right.
Okay, so you are, in essence, you have addressed a little bit.
What you do with that extra 10% is your biz, but usually what happens is the parking, you never reach the front number, the 20%. You always reach the back number first.
Right.
And parking usually drives your build-up, right? That's the number you reach first before you reach structure, right?
It's not really on point in this, but I think we overpark ourselves too sometimes. We pay too much.
I know
For
that.
another discussion.
For another discussion, but I've tried to think about that. You know, do you want to increase the first number, 30%, and decrease the back number? And then relax some parking assumptions. I used to live in Dedham when I was first married, above the engineering firm that was behind the courthouse. I parked in the judge's spot on the weekends. I had to be out by Monday morning. Some Monday mornings I wasn't, always on time. But that's the type of complementary parking. I lived above a business, parked in existing parking spaces.
Did you ever get towed?
No, the sheriff's department was pretty nice about it. They knew who we were. They knocked on our door. You got to get out of here because, the judge is on his way. That's a true story. Yes, sir. I'm getting out of there. But that's the type of use of parking in facilities like you're on line with, right? You have to sometimes play with these numbers, come in with a model, see how they work.
Yeah. Corey just sent us a really great document about parking. I don't know if that was just for the three of us.
Yeah, it was,
Okay,
yeah, because we brought it up at the
Yeah.
LCP meeting.
yeah. So we're all on parking right now.
So, I got one more question.
Yes, Doug.
So the reasoning behind the 4 units per acre, is that because without affordability, you felt that was the appropriate limit?
Yeah, 4 units an acre, I think, is what you really need, to make some of these things work. I think also the board needs to think about how we define dwelling unit. Right now, there's a development that's going to happen a couple hundred feet away. That's 32 units an acre. It's the odd fellows. It's 4 units on 5,000 square feet. It's going to work just fine. But they're 4 550 or 600 square foot units on the sewer. I think we came in with a proposal to town meeting and said we would like this to have a by right use of 32 units an acre, there'd be some, people, what were you thinking? So we really need to get back to what we define as a unit. Because a 4-bedroom, 3-car garage Garrison Colonial is a unit. And so is a 500 square foot micro unit is a unit. But I think we need to really think about that and how we define that. And what's the metric for that, a dwelling unit. And I think then folks won't be as so concerned when they hear, 6 units an acre, 4 units an acre. Well, we have 32 units an acre right here in Town Hall Square.
Yes, Doug.
Is it possible we might someday move from units to number of bedrooms?
I think that's a better metric sometimes because we calculate parking on bedrooms, we calculate Title V flow on bedrooms. Now, some people might say that's a terrible way to do it, but that's how we do it. So you may want to think about that, right? Or some size delimiter, dwelling units of 1,000 square feet or less, or 1,000 square feet or more. Something a little bit better than we have today, because right now you have 6 units an acre. Well, they could be 4-bedroom Garrison Colonials, or they could be a studio apartment. obviously they have different impacts. The studio apartment doesn't have the same impact as a 4-bedroom garrison or saltbox or whatever it might be, right? 4-bedroom unit to a studio unit. So we need to think about that when we talk about multifamily zones, even accessory dwelling units, because they're not the same.
I think we should also consider, or at the same time, our conversion bylaw.
That's next on my list.
Okay, because it's starting to fit into this.
Right.
And I think that they probably should not be dealt with totally exclusive, that at least in our planning process, that we should be contemplating both. Maybe not having them both happen at the same time, but in the same conversation.
Right, you want the accessory, multifamily, then look at the conversion bylaw.
Right.
One of the things we're going to run into trouble on the conversion bylaw is that back in the day, we used to put a time limit or a date.
Right.
The Attorney General that Attorney General's office that it was fine. In the 90s and the 2000s, that Attorney General's office said, no, it's not fine. Today, we might find out, depends on who's up at the municipal law unit. My sense is they're going to find that to break the uniformity. That what's the difference whether the house was built in 1980 or 1981? And they're getting away from these dates. So it might be that, think about how we handle that for the conversion bylaw. You might have to say, and I think there's some other towns that have that conversion, it's a house built within the last 5 years. So it has to have been in existence for 5 years before you're eligible to apply. And that way you're being uniform throughout the district. Instead of saying you have to be in existence as of 1980, well, 35 years later, why can't I apply for a permit, but my neighbor can't? And that's about that whole, equity thing. But yeah, it's on my list of things to do is look at the conversion bylaw. I wanted to get through accessories and start this.
All part of the same plan, yeah.
Right. But that's the thoughts. So I can look at the introducing some purpose based on the LCP votes and reestablishing and strengthening village centers. Take a look at Judy's report. We'll have some maps for you with Bob Shea. We'll talk about how we define a dwelling unit. Think about that. Because it really comes down to, we have 1 and 2 family dwellings, but a multifamily dwelling can be many things. So we really need to think about how we want to do that and have that, the board needs to be able to discuss that. Because it might be, right now, you have a special permit use of up to 8 units per acre. But, you may want to think about that, 32 units an acre, if they're micro units, might be okay by right. It's on the sewer, it's on the transit line, it strengthens the village centers, it meets all your formula. You want to be able to encourage that. And, the more certainty you have, the less onerous the permit process is, the more likelihood you're going to achieve some success. So that's what we'll work on next.
I suggest we add all the units. It's pretty obvious, but we should put the units down on this sheet here. 20,000 square feet, obviously, and the setbacks are feet. I think it's important.
Oh, yes. Yeah, this is yes. 20,000 square inches, right? 20,000, you pick the number. Yes, we will do that. Any other comments for me or guidance?
I think that's good for now.
Okay, very good.
We'll have this on a future discussion. We're still working. This is an ongoing process.
Ongoing thing, we'll keep on working at it. It takes a few meetings with the board, as you see, and it starts to gel, come together. So my sense is by the end of the year. Probably won't be ready for town meeting.
Jim, one other point on that, we have an article talking about raising the building height to 40 feet in the flood zone. We might want to make sure that we're not inconsistent with this one here.
Yes, if you are in the flood zone, let's say you had an accessory apartment or this building, and you're in also that zone, you would be allowed to go up to that, well, if town meeting votes it,
If that passes.
if it passes, yes. And that's how we do that.
Okay, correspondence. Do we have some more correspondence?
You signed the covenant, thank you. In your correspondence folder, there are also emails and letters that came in with regards to Article 3 of the special town meeting, but they came in after the hearing. They're there for your perusal, but obviously the vote of the board has taken place, but I just want to let you know they're there. You just weren't eligible to read them until after you voted.
Do I see a hand up?
Nope.
Okay, to be clear, we closed the meeting, and that's, the correspondence came in afterwards. That's,
Right, I
closed the
think
hearing. Last
you
week.
closed the hearing and took it under advisement.
Yeah.
So under
that-
future agenda items, I'm going to just offer something for the board's consideration.
And just on that subject, maybe when we close and take it under advisement, we should make an announcement to the public that that's it. Don't bother sending letters. You know, it's too late. Or we leave it open for written comment. 'Cause
Yeah, one or the other.
yeah, because probably people maybe don't understand.
Because we need to get to a definite point when we move on. We just can't keep it open forever.
Right.
All right, future agenda items. Are there any suggestions? Yes, Ralph?
Yeah, Brian, could we get an update on the redo of the two intersections in town? Those I thought were supposed to be completed by this fall. Am I wrong on that?
No.
Okay, so I think, I think the public needs to know what to expect there. I'm a little skeptical myself about whether or not it's going to happen. And if there's going to be a delay, then we need to know. Certainly, plowing snow under the conditions that exist right now would be extremely difficult. I don't know if there's a holdup by the utility people or what the deal is.
Okay.
And then, of course, you've got to finish your paving before they shut down,
Right.
which is, what, mid-November or something? I don't remember
Yeah,
when they
about
shut.
December 1st.
All of us are traveling those intersections occasionally right now, and
Okay.
it seems to me like we're going to be right up against the limit, so maybe we could
I'll ask Peter,
get something out so that we could discuss it here. You could just tell us, give us an update here, so that the public could be informed by the television.
I'll ask Pete McConerty to brief the board, this board and/or this board of selectmen, where we're at with the intersection projects and get that there in TV world. It probably won't be completed till this time next year.
Yeah, I recall when we had meetings on this like 2 years ago, and it was my hope that it would be completed while I was still alive. And
Mine too.
and I'm not sure, we're getting close here.
No, no, no.
Oh, Ralph, you okay?
No.
Check his pulse.
No,
So anyway, I mean, I think the public would like to know.
I will check in with the deputy director. I think this is very timely. There are obviously been delays, some of them engendered by us, some by the contractor, but let me check with Peter and get you guys some information.
Doug?
One more question on the same subject. There was talk at some of the previous meetings, like the 25% meeting, about rebuilding stone walls at the Davisville intersection, and there was...
Yes. We've hired Sir Horiuchi and Celine to advance the concept, the design. We were waiting for the construction to be completed. We're hopeful to have some meetings with that in the near future, so I can do that. I can bring that up to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Well, the next meeting, November 3rd, we
Okay.
still,
We'll probably see you, did we table that?
Yes, we
Okay,
did.
so we'll see you the night of town meeting to do a little A&R on the 9th. There will be no meeting on the 3rd.
No meeting on the 3rd.
So we still meet the deadline?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
That means everyone has to show up for town meeting. We need a quorum.
Oh, four, you need four.
At least 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need a quorum.
Right.
The 9th is a Monday.
I move adjournment.
I'll
So
second.
we're not meeting on the 3rd?
I got a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Wait, no, you can ask a discussion on that.
Okay, would you
No,
like,
no.
I was ready to go. Ken, you want to?
No one can
We were
go.
still talking there. so.
I would thought you were
Ralph
over.
just wants
You
clarification.
didn't hear the motion in the second because people
I
were
did,
speaking
but
out
we
of
were
order.
still talking about.
They weren't recognized. Go ahead.
Ralph was
Ralph.
talking about the
Well,
meeting. I was going to.
Are we meeting on the 3rd? That's all I want to know.
No,
No,
Okay,
Are we meeting on the 9th?
yes.
yes,
okay.
On the Monday?
yeah.
Probably 6:30.
Okay.
The question that I wanted to ask is the next scheduled Tuesday meeting would probably be November the 17th?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, that's what I wanted to ask.
okay.
It's been moved and seconded.
We have a motion. We have a motion on the table and a second to adjourn. Any more discussion?